Thanks for joining us throughout these 7 weeks. It's been wonderful to connect with all of you, and it's been wonderful to explore Emily Dickinson together as well as the Bible. So thank you for being a part of this group. Sean, I will hand it over to you for the day.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, it is kind of the end of a cycle in a sense, and liturgically very strange to have a community gather just for Maundy Thursday, and then disperse, and then it's like, well, good luck with the rest of Holy Week, you know, as we send you off on your different ways that way. What I learned in the parish, serving a small, quite a few people of German heritage, was that I discovered these people called Good Friday Christians. Like we've all heard of Christmas and Easter Christians, you know, sort of those who catch the high holy festivals. And I found this group of German people who were Good Friday Christians. And the year we moved Good Friday to do something a little bit more exploratory, like just a little bit like, okay, it was really different, but like they were mad. And like, I had to like look them up and ask like, who are these people that are mad at us for not having Good Friday? I don't know who they are. I've only been here for 2 years. Like, it's very interesting. So anyway, I say that just to sort of to mark this moment and where we're at. And so just to get our thoughts moving and our microphones turned on, and remember where the mute button is, does anybody know what the word Maundy Thursday or Maundy actually means? And if you don't, it's fine. I had to look it up. I have the big book of Gail Ramshaw here. So I call this the book of Ramshaw. She gives me all the answers when I don't know them. So does anyone know? You've probably learned this information 100 times but it's really not relevant the other 364 days of the year. So much like what is an alb, you have to relearn it over and over and over again until it becomes relevant to you, right? So any guesses? I saw some lips moving. Yes, lips moving, go. Oh, you're muted.
Oh, not muted. It's just not working, Joanne.
Okay, say it really slow. We'll try and read your lips. Did anyone get that? I think she's, maybe it's in the chat. Oh, there we go. Yes, hello? Commandment, yes. It's closer to mandate, you know. If you want to, again, people with way better language skills than me can really do the etymology. And so we have this mandate Thursday, right? And it comes out very clearly in the Bible reading what exactly this mandate is. And it's just crazy to me that this is one of the days of the church year where we have such a clear mandate. And then you look at what the church has done over the last 2,000 years, and it's like, how did we get from this mandate to some of the things we actually ended up doing that did not seem to be very life-giving or loving and all of these things. So just to get the Bible verse out there. Oh, before I did that though, I did want to ask how many people, by show of hands, is this sort of your only Maundy Thursday thing you're doing? Yeah. A couple of the pastors are like, yeah, no, I'm stuck doing other stuff here. Yeah, okay. So some of these, yeah, for me, the rest of my Maundy Thursday is somewhat optional, right? There's going to be these other things that I can do, but I'm not mandated to do by anybody. This is one of those the weird things about being a chaplain is that you fall sometimes outside of the church year, and so many of my clergy colleagues are going crazy for Holy Week. And I'm like, well, the students have all gone crazy for finals and nobody wants to play with me. So like I've sort of got a long weekend here, and I'll try and show up where I can, but in some ways I'm not professionally busy on this weekend, right? So it's kind of thing. Yeah. So all right, let us zip up and we'll read the verse. And after I read the verse, we'll talk about what is the mandate that's coming out of that. And then with that mandate, I'd love to hear your Maundy Thursday stories. So think about all the Maundy Thursdays you've been a part of and all the Maundy Thursday things that you've seen. And we'll share a few of those stories as we go along. So strap in. It's kind of a longer reading, but I thought I would just do it myself because I'm already talking and things are going along. But before we do that, to the song today, to kind of center ourselves in in where we're at is a simple song that can be used in any group with any situation for anything. And so the words are quite simple. The words are simply, what we need is here. Um, and as words of faith, they mean something of like, even though things are hard, or even though things are a little strange, or even though whatever's going on in your life, what we need is here. And so it's kind of this song of trust, right? And so the words together are simply, what we need is here. What we need is here. And so in your own context, in your own way, you can hum along or close your eyes and think about, and what does this word mean? I mean, this is a prayer. If it's a prayer, it's a prayer of trust. It's a prayer that even though things are hard, that the Spirit of God is perhaps with us in a way that we don't know, or that even if the future is unknown and scary, it's a song that trusts that the promises are still true, right? So let's sing that through a few times, and I invite you to just leave it on mute, hum along, close your eyes, and reflect or sing on what this means. What we need is here. What we need is here. Keep it going. What we need is here. What we need is here in God's promises. What we need is here. What we need is here in our communities. What we need is here. What we need is here. So reading from John 13, it's a bit of a longer reading. Now, before the festival of the Passover, Jesus knew that his hour had come to depart from this world and go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. The devil had already put it into the heart of Judas, son of Simon Iscariot, to betray him. And during supper, Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hand and that he had come from God and was going to God, got up from the table, took off his outer robe, and tied a towel around himself. Then he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and to wipe them with a towel that was tied around him. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" And Jesus answered, "You do not know what I am doing, but later you will understand." Peter said to him, "You will never wash my feet." And Jesus answered, "Unless I wash you, you have no share with me." And Simon Peter said to him, "Well, Lord, not my feet, but also my hands and my head." And Jesus said to him, "One who is bathed does not need to wash except for the feet, but is entirely clean. And you are clean, though not all of you." For he knew who was to betray him. For this reason, he said, "Not all of you are clean." And after he had washed their feet and put on his robe and had returned to the table, he said to them, "Do you know what I have done to you? You call me teacher and Lord, and you are right, for that is what I am. So if I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have set you an example that you also should do as I have done to you. Very truly, I tell you, servants are not greater than their master, nor are messengers greater than the one who sent them. If you know these things, you are blessed if you do them. I'm not speaking of all of you. I know whom I have chosen, but it is to fulfill the scripture. The one who ate my bread and lifted his heel against me. I tell you this now before it occurs, so that when it does occur, you may believe that I am he. Very truly, I tell you, whoever receives one who I send, receives me, and whoever receives me receives him who sent me. And after saying this, Jesus was troubled in spirit and declared, "Very truly, I tell you, one of you will betray me." And the disciples looked at one another, uncertain of whom he was speaking. One of his disciples, the one whom Jesus loved, was reclining next to him. Simon Peter therefore motioned to him to ask Jesus of whom he was speaking. So while reclining next to Jesus, he asked him, "Lord, who is it?" And Jesus answered, "It is the one to whom I give this piece of bread when I have dipped it in the dish." So when he had dipped the piece of bread, he gave it to Judas, son of Simon Iscariot. And after he received the piece of bread, Satan entered into him. Jesus said to him, "Do quickly what you are going to do." Now no one at the table knew why he said this to him. Some thought that because Judas had the common purse, Jesus was telling him, "Buy what you need for the festival," or that we should give something to the poor. So after receiving the piece of bread, he immediately went out, and it was night. When he had gone out, Jesus said, "Now the Son of Man has been glorified, and God has been glorified in him. If God has been glorified in him, God will also glorify him in himself and will glorify him at once. Little children, I am with you for only a little longer. You will look at me, and as I said to the Jews, so now I say to you, where I am going, you cannot come. I give you a new commandment, that you love one another, just as I have loved you. You also love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. And so the mandate becomes quite clear, nicely tucked in at the very end of the reading there. I give you a new commandment. Oh, there it is. That you love one another. Just as I have loved you, you should also love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you have love for one another. And so the foot washing is done, the mandate is given, and I'm curious, do people have Maundy Thursday foot washing stories they would like to share, or things that have happened on Maundy Thursday? Or foot washings, just jump on in, yeah.
Our congregation went into hand washing because people freaked out about foot washing. And that actually, I think, is more meaningful in this culture.
Yes, we are weird about our feet, aren't we?
Who needs their feet washed anymore, you know? It's not like it would have been when Jesus did it.
Yeah.
I guess for me, it brings to mind our opening night of staff training. It's been a tradition for many generations even to wash each other's feet down at the lake.
It's we've done it at our church. We've had a Cedars supper, and we've had washing feet, and it's very intimate and it's very healing when you do it. So it's not the same as washing somebody's hands, because I've done that too. But washing somebody's feet, you're right. You have to be vulnerable to do it, because people really don't want their feet washed. But it's very it was very moving when we've done it.
We've done it at our church too. And it's like done like, there's a semicircle of people sitting in front, and then the priest goes to each person and there's music, and each person represents like this person, and we say a short prayer for the homeless. This person, we're praying for people with challenges. Do you see how I'm saying it? And the next one would be praying for, conflict, and we need more world peace. So like each person symbolizes something like that. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and it grips into the mandate thing about to love one another. So you're praying that we would find ways to love one another, right? Yeah, that's really great. I like that.
My Bible college Thursday was our regular chapel day. So Maundy Thursday was always a time that they kind of changed things up and made it a little bit different from regular chapel. And I remember one year they rearranged the whole chapel so that all of the chairs were like, there'd be 2 rows and the second row would be turned around. So they were facing each other, and we were sitting, I don't know, probably like 3 feet apart, which now is like terrifying. But at the time actually was quite terrifying to be sitting like this close and facing someone while we were singing worship and reciting prayers, and it had that kind of intimacy, discomfort breaking down walls kind of feeling to it.
Yeah, the word intimacy seems to be popping up a couple times throughout this thing, right? This closeness of, well, human contact, but also, yeah, just a way of praying, a way of being close. I've been in churches that have done both the hand washing and the foot washing, depending on the different traditions of the places. The hand washing we did once came with a blessing individually for each person's hands and the way that they use those hands to go out and love the world. And I was with a pastor who was my internship supervisor, but because she knew her congregation so well, she would take these hands, and then after they both stopped crying, she would then wash them. And like it was a moment of deep, deep, deep connection and blessing and sending, right? So this idea of again, extending that love for the neighbor, or noticing the love that has already been given and blessing the hands that do the work anyway. Yeah. Other stories.
The first Seder supper Barb and I went to, I thought it was an actual supper, but all it was little bits of twigs and crackers and stuff, and I came away hungry, although it was very meaningful in that way, but it wasn't very filling. And I don't want to lose the moment here, but foot washing is not much of a tradition in my church. So it was set up in the evening and nobody was coming forward. Barb and I went ahead and got to the front of the church, and she washed my feet and I washed hers. But she had some new socks on. She told me not to say the story. She had some new socks and it was all full of fuzz. So in the bowl, it was all full of fuzz. And we got up and she was laughing. And I was laughing, and the people in the congregation were wondering what is going on. The congregation thought I was tickling her feet. Anyway, it was intimate, but it was anyway.
Yeah,
I was just dying and hoping nobody else would come up and see these little black worms in the water. It was just awful.
And nobody did.
Yeah, sometimes the symbol is overwhelmed by other things, right? So the beautiful symbol of servitude is now overwhelmed by sock fuzz, and that's all we're going to see. We didn't notice the other thing going on. The ticklish thing has come up a few times, and part of the reason I used to worry about that. And then when I was in Madagascar on not an exchange, it was like a visitation of the Lutheran Church in Madagascar. We went to the one community where their practice was for all guests who arrived, they broke into song and they sang and sang and sang. And then you went to this special foot washing station, and everybody who arrived at the community had their feet washed. And when we talk about washing feet, I think the problem I've noticed in most liturgical settings is we try to do it with about 2 ounces of water and a gentle kind of like symbolic scrubbing. And what they did there was like, you needed to expose like everything below the knee, because they needed to be able to see the knee, because that's where the water started pouring. And so like they poured jugs of water and they were scrubbing your whole leg and your foot and the whole thing. And so as a very large and outdoor vigorous symbol, ticklishness wasn't an option, because ticklishness happens when you're barely touching or kind of tentatively touching. But some of these Malagasy women were just like they were scrubbing the hairs off your leg. Like they were just, and it was a thorough welcoming into the community that way, right? So, but powerful at the same time to have a community say, oh, look, we have guests. Let's break into all these songs we know in 6-part harmony, sung at a volume that no North American could ever sing at. And then we'll scrub their feet raw, and then we will feed them. Like it literally followed this pattern, right? So it was a beautiful way to welcome, a beautiful act of servitude, and then a humbling act too, right? To show up as sort of nobody to this community, and then have this happen to you. And one thing to arrive as privileged white man traveling the world, welcome, you are welcome. But if you are thrown out of your community because you have a disease or unclean or something, and then you arrive at this community, you get the same welcoming. Everybody gets the same foot wash welcoming to this. Anyways, a beautiful moment. So as all the ticklish stories come out, I'm like, yeah, it's because we're so tentative. If we would just grab that foot and scrub it, there's no room for ticklishness there. But I think I had one more story here. Was there somebody else? Ryan, you were trying to talk earlier, I think.
Yeah, with the whole Zoom thing, it's kind of tough. But I always remember at camp, because we would all, as a camper, we would often do that. I don't know if it was every year, but probably most years. And one thing that was a little bit more relevant is we would do kind of the foot washing with each other, and then we would also wash a counselor's car usually, which is more of like a modern symbol of servitude, which is a little bit more kind of meaningful to us today. And I always thought that was kind of a really nice act.
Yeah. I love this innovation we're seeing, people taking old traditions and making things new too, right? Like I think it's an important part of it, right? I sometimes wonder if the Apostle Paul were suddenly reincarnated and appeared among us, would look at the way that we're scouring his letters for every possible bit of meaning, and he'd be like, no, you don't get it. I was doing theology for my people. You were supposed to do theology for your people. And this is an example, not exactly what you're supposed to do. This worked in Corinth, this worked in Rome, this worked here, but you're not, no. You're in Jenner, Alberta. You should do something different. Still proclaiming the gospel, but not necessarily scouring it for just like one thing, right? So yeah. Oh, I see I see some sarcasm in the chat, Craig. And yes, acts of service. Wouldn't you feel loved if somebody randomly showed up and said, you can't see what I've done, but I've washed behind your fridge. This is my act of service and love for you. Maybe that should be a congregational thing for your pastors. On Mondays, you should sneak into their homes while they're still passed out and asleep from Holy Week, and you just go and clean something as an act of service towards those. Yeah, it is a weird kind of week. Like even for me, when I lose the rhythm of Holy Week, I sometimes forget just how tired and exhausting this week can be for other pastors. So I'm like, hey, what are you doing Friday afternoon after the thing? We could, no, we can't. What about next Tuesday? Nope, not next Tuesday. You're like, it's just, it's like, oh yeah, I got to leave these people alone for a week to recover. And then, then we can get back to the mandate of getting out and loving each other. But right now we need to love ourselves and fall asleep for a while. I do want to move to the poem though, because we have that, and we're going to see how we can connect this poem that the SALT people have given us. They've only given us the one poem today to work with. And I think in the chat, you should have gotten the poems of Dickinson and the SALT ebook, and quite easy to grab the SALT ebook and do Good Friday and Holy Saturday and Easter if you want, depending on your connection pieces. The book does work as a take home and do some stuff on your own too, right? So depending on your ability to get out to a Good Friday service or to take one in on Zoom, or it's the Zoom theology of worship is something I don't think we've quite had enough time to talk about, right? We took a year to figure out the nuts and bolts on how to get out onto Zoom and how to get out onto the internet, but we've never really sat down and talked about, and now that we're here, what should we do? And what is a good way to do this with some sort of integrity that's actually helpful, that's good? What do we leave? What do we take? So anyway, you've got in the chat, if you haven't downloaded those before, I do welcome you to download those and keep them with you. But the Maundy Thursday, does anyone have that poem in front of them that they wanted to read for us? It's not a long one, and there's no crazy hard words in it, except one I had to look up.
I'll read it.
Yes, please read it for us. Thank you, Regan.
Okay. I dwell in possibility. I dwell in possibility, a fair house in prose, more numerous of windows, superior for doors, of chambers as the cedars, impregnable of eye, and for an everlasting roof, the gambrels of the sky. Of visitors the fairest, for occupation this, the spreading wide my narrow hands to gather paradise.
And so I wonder, what do you notice? The first thing I notice is that they probably said the word this or paradise differently, so it actually rhymed back when she wrote this. Does anyone speak Old Boston? Is it paradis? What do you notice when you read this one?
I
like-
notice words aren't enough sometimes. Words can't encompass what you feel or what you need to say.
There's something in spreading wide my narrow hands, something about, our view of the world is smaller than it could be, or our view of the future or possibility is smaller than it could be.
Yeah, the word narrow hands. What does this mean? Yes, that's good. Yeah.
I think it's one of her most hopeful poems for me that we've read in all of this, because it's right there in the first line, like possibility, what could happen, meaning in a positive sense, like good things can happen here. That's how I took it. Did anyone else take it like that?
If anybody's wondering what a gambrel is, I looked it up.
That's my word.
It's a two-sided roof that has a steeper section above a shallower section on each side. So
Yeah.
I'm picturing a little bit like a barn, where it flares out.
Yeah. Where's our builders? Have you built some gambrels in your past? We got something on Ken and Carol Bell. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, that way, yeah. Shallower above steeper, yeah.
The gambrels of the sky. It's almost, I think of that as a spacious kind of roof, not like one of those A-frames where you're banging your head on the roof all the time, right? Like this is, there's a spaciousness to it, right?
So you can pile the bales up there.
Yeah.
You need that space. I think it's, I think part of what this poem is, it's the possibility, it's fairer than prose, which I take to mean sort of more than the evidence of the present suggests, that there's greater possibility than what we can see right now, than the evidence of life suggests right now.
Yes, more numerous of windows, superior for doors. Does superior mean many doors, or does this mean
Having more doors, I think.
Yeah.
I look at that line, a fairer house than prose and more numerous of windows, superior for doors, as like, could it be a comparison between prose and poetry, that, prose gives you so much of a view, but poetry has more windows, it has more doors, it's more open, you can see more through it.
Through all the possibility, yeah. Yeah, the note I made beside the poem was limitless. Like, it's almost like finding a neat way to say almost unlimited. If there's numerous windows and tons of doors, then there's no limit, right? Like, that's the possibilities are limitless, right? Like, that's the joy of it, right? I think one of the reasons they might have chosen this poem to go with this verse is the mandate within the poem. If you can see one there. Again, that was my word of the day after I looked it up. Do we see a mandate within the poem? We have an occupation word. So what is the mandate for the poet, but perhaps maybe for all humanity? Or what is the call? What's the poem calling for us? What is the occupation?
I think it's gathering paradise. That's all you're asked to do, is spread wide your narrow hands.
Yeah. For occupation, the spreading wide my narrow hands to gather paradis.
Paradis, yeah.
Paradis?
To dream, to accept God's possibility.
I think it's the same call to love and welcome that, like Sean, you talked about in this community, that sings and washes your feet, and anyone is welcome, even if you've been kicked out of your other community. This like, yeah, my hands are open, come in, anyone come in, and you, the visitors, the people that I'm welcoming in, you are the paradise that I'm gathering.
Yeah, yeah. And it's a vast paradise, a vast, like the Gambrels are the sky. Like it's one interpreter said, this is an ode to all creation. If you want to use spiritual language to say it's about the creation, it's about the everything, it's about the blessing of all things outdoors, and the house is bigger than we ever knew, right? And then yeah, to gather paradise. So what is this now? Spreading wide my narrow hands to gather. So what does it mean to gather this?
One thing that came to mind for me also is like you mentioned with the breaking of the rhyme, and maybe it's sort of like kind of breaking the status quo. Like it's not doing what everyone else would do. It's sort of like different.
Oh, so maybe it does break the rhyme. Yeah, actually, yeah. I was assuming some Boston accent, but maybe it is sort of one of those moments where at the end you're sort of like, whoa, I'm a little shocked. Yeah. That sounds like such a Jesus thing, to break a long-standing traditional rule and say, no, this is what love is.
And the last two lines is like to go further with what we're saying now is like it's also encompassing the now moment. Like it's now that we're supposed to do this, not tomorrow, not 20 years from now, but like right now in this moment that God gave us.
Right. Yes.
You know what I mean? Like to do it now, like the urgency is now.
Right. Yeah. And so I'd actually like to with that segue, actually talk a little bit about what does that look like now, and in big and small ways, right? Like I am confident that if you watch the news today, you will find a picture of the Pope kissing somebody's feet today. And it will be probably a minority or somebody else who's often forgotten. The Pope is the current Pope is very good at Maundy Thursday Instagram. In terms of doing something big and hugely symbolic, right? And so what is that, given our Maundy Thursday, like what does this love one another or gathering in of paradise or opening eyes or arms wide to all that is abundantly given, you know, in a world where right now, I don't know if you heard the tears behind, but somebody's taking care of it. Right now, it is very easy to be insular and doors closed and danger outside. And I mean, I'm loving my neighbor by not visiting my neighbor and giving them COVID. So that's how I'm loving my neighbor. But how am I swinging wide now my arms to paradise or paradise or however it is? I'm reminded of the DC Talk song from the 90s, Love is a Verb. I have a mixed relationship with DC Talk now, but one of the songs that they used to sing was all about how love is a verb, love is an action. And maybe you've heard the songs like "A new commandment I give unto you, that you love one," you know, all these things. What is this arms thrown wide, and what does it look like today in either tiny little ways or in really big ways? Does anyone have an example or a way that they can see themselves having lived into it already or living into it into the future?
I'm kind of an introverted person, so I don't find it necessarily that easy to interact directly with a lot of people. But I do like to think that I'm showing love when I share my financial resources with groups that help other people.
Yeah. Making possible the abundance of creation for those who, because of socioeconomic things, are denied those things, right? So it's widening the circle. Absolutely. That is an absolute concrete sign of love. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm reminded of my friend, Pastor Dennis Hendrickson. He's one of the local pastors here in Regina. And I think today will mark his 375th day of posting a positive post of the day. So COVID locked us down. COVID went a little crazy. Dennis Hendrickson, in all of his busy life, decided, I will post one positive thing on Facebook every single day. And that it was partially for his own mental health, because it forced him to find photos for every single day. And he's a bit of a photographer. And so every day since COVID began, I have got a Dennis Hendrickson positive post of the day. And sometimes he's reaching way back to a picture from Brooks, Alberta, of the aqueduct or something where he and his friends were playing or something. But, you know, every day there has been this one arms open to here's something really amazing about the world around us. A lot of, like, he started walking, and then I got to see pictures of his family as he forced them to go for walks on the bike paths with him, right? Little tiny ways of being open, but then also very intentionally sharing that, right? As a way of just being open to it. It also, you know, when you promise everybody you're going to make a positive post of the day, they will tell you if you miss one, right? Like they'll like, hey, where's my positive post? But if you look up Dennis Hendrickson on Facebook, who's a brother of James Hendrickson of the Edmonton Hendricksons, you will find that. Other examples, there must be something.
For me, it's always little things, because that's my life. It's all small. So like when this COVID thing started and a lot of stuff was taken from Teresa, so then I had this little COVID calendar, if you like, and every day we'd pick something specific to do. Like it could be just plain fish, you know, card game, or Toy Story, Monopoly, go for this walk. Like, so then I'd write it down, you know, just so that I could look back with her and go like, okay, so what did we do? And lots of people do really big things in life, but I've never been that way. I've never had those opportunities. So I really try to pay attention to what's in front of me. So everything is really tiny, but I'm trying anyway.
Well, but I would argue it's the little things that matter sometimes the most. Like I remember you'd run a week of camp as a camp counselor director, and you do the evaluations, and it's like nobody wrote how much they liked your fancy wall or your boat trip or all the stuff that you put all your energy in. And somebody will write like, I really like my counselor because he tousled my head, like he would fluff the head or whatever, right? And it's like, wow, that was not planned, scheduled, or paid for, or any part of the program, but that little act of reaching out and being connected, absolutely, it's huge. It's huge. And these are I mean, the poem talks of narrow hands, right? It's not about the biggest action possible. This is an outward looking, open, wide act of love. So it's beautiful. No, I love it. This is good.
Here's something that's really small, but surprisingly meaningful to me is my neighbor and I will put each other's organic cart or garbage cart out on the right day and take it back if the other person hasn't done it already.
Yeah. So the prose is possibility in the poem. The Maundy Thursday is a mandate to love one another in this new way. When I bring up the Pope doing something symbolic, it's actually very powerful to see somebody who, you know, has some of the fanciest clothes I've ever seen and lives in his own country where he is the Pope of, and yet takes time and energy to symbolically say, but really beyond all of this, underneath all of this, we put aside that fanciness and we do this act of service. And so we look at Jesus doing sort of the same thing. Fancy, rich, powerful people do not, you have servants to wash the feet of the other, right? That's not what the master of the house does. The servants wash the feet. We have people that do these things for us, right? And so it's this surprising act of shocking leadership in a sense, you know, like we talk in the business world, they talk about leadership giving, right? If you join the Luther College board, once every second board meeting, we will have the conversation again about, and of course, we're still working to get 100% board donation to our organization, because that's one of the things we agreed was important, was to, if you're going to serve on this board, one of your symbolics is to actually donate. They've never pressured anyone to give a certain amount, but everybody must. And so that they can say 100% of our board members have given to our organization, symbolically showing that we believe in where we're going. And this is something, right? And I think this is if you want to boil away a lot of the spiritual things and the God incarnate among us down to a simple act of turning the world on its head, right? Where the one who's supposed to be the leader, well, Peter's reaction, right? Whoa, hang on 1 second. You will not wash my feet, right? This is just not something that's going to happen, which is different. Like if you've got ticklish feet and you don't want to go up to the front, that's totally a different thing. That's fine. You don't have to worry about that. But Peter's obligation is like, no, I want to hold on to the old way of understanding that important big people have certain places in this paradise and unimportant people wash feet, right? And then Jesus symbolically turns this upside down, right? So some of the, in some ways, in our last few minutes as this community, in a sense of this, our incarnation of this small little piece of it comes to a close, to give some future looking ideas as we look to Holy Week, right? And again, these are just ideas. So we've heard some things that people do that show that their arms are wide open to creation and doing from little things to big things to financial things. But what are the possibilities? Like we have to live into a future that's coming. What are the possibilities that are coming? I have found, well, your health person, Dina Hinshaw, right? She is somebody who my wife was a roommate to way back in Bible school days or Augustana days. And so we have this connection, and she was studying to become a doctor when I was studying to become a nurse in Edmonton. So we have this relationship, and then COVID hits, and my gosh, what an interesting position to be standing as a health professional next to political people. We see it all across the country, these health professionals trying to thread the needle of saying what is science and health and best for the people while standing next to the person who actually gets to make the decision. You know what I mean? Like it's a political weird thing. And so in a quick email, I found 7 chaplains across Canada willing to write a short 1-paragraph, hey, we believe in what you're doing and your vocation and the way that you're trying to serve and and put that together. Took about 7 minutes in total, made a world of difference to Dina in that moment 1 year ago today, about a year ago, right? We took the time to write this little note, this thank you note. So what is paradise walking and arms wide gathering in? Let's live in this possibility for a moment. What could this look like? I'm thinking the kindness of poetry, these little notes we give to each other of encouragement. Gosh, those make a difference, don't they? Has anyone ever gotten one of those notes and it just turned your day around? Opened you up to the possibility of what paradise could be today and look like? What about just thank you notes? Bishop Elaine Sauer, when she was bishop, she took to the habit of every morning beginning with 3 thank you notes. She had a drawer on her desk. She'd open it up. She'd pull out 3 thank you notes. She would write 3 thank you notes to different clergy and people around her around her synod. And then she would seal them and mail them, and it was done. Didn't take long. Tiny little act of being open to a possible future and showing this love. What other possibilities can you imagine in this paradise walk we're doing here? What else can we do to embrace this, well, the mandate to love one another from Jesus, and then in the poem, this idea of spreading wide our narrow hands to gather paradise, like we turn towards the paradise in this way of gathering it in and showing it to be bigger and more true than we thought, right? So it's kind of like the possibilities. What other possibilities are there? Can we imagine together? So thank you notes. We heard about bins. Actually, everybody should take out their neighbor's garbage bin. Doesn't that just hurt when you forget the garbage and it's full, and yeah, everybody else's bin is empty and yours is sitting there too late, and the walk of shame to pull the bin back in full. What other things? You've probably already done them, half of them, right? What other things can we think of that would be ways to dwell in possibilities?
I've been supporting the movement for a just transition after COVID so that the inequalities of society start to lessen again.
Yes. Oh my goodness. That's a very broad, that's big. Yeah, that's great.
Maybe helping connect people to resources. So I woke this morning with a text from my niece who lives in Saskatoon that talked about one of her friends who lives in Calgary, who right now has gone through a huge mental health crisis. And to be able to know resources and connect people to those resources is a part of, I guess, helping connect them to paradise, trying to bring hope to others who now need that hope. And there's many, many people, a lot of youth that right now are going through mental health crisis. And to be able to help make connections is an important part of opening our hands.
Yeah, which requires being open to the neighbor and seeing the neighbor, and then maybe it's big acts of love, maybe small acts. Yeah, that's very good. Yeah, yeah.
One of the buzz phrases around universities these days are equity, diversity, and inclusion. And part of what I've come to see it is it's a real challenge actually to make a little effort to learn something about people who are different from you, and then actually to ask them, or to actually figure out how to pronounce their name is sometimes a huge challenge. Like, to make that effort to figure out how to pronounce somebody's name is, even these small gestures can make the world feel a little more expansive and gathering in paradise.
Yeah, it took me 45 minutes, but I learned to say Abdul Rahman. And I'm pretty close to saying it properly, because it's not Abdul Rahman, it's Abdul Rahman, but I don't even have that sound. I had to learn a whole new sound to be able to say it. After 45 minutes of learning it, one of my multi-faith peer chaplains, Hira, who I'd been calling Hira the whole time, she's like, "That's great, Sean, you got it. Now maybe you can learn to say my name." And I'm like, "It's been a year and a bit, Hira. Huh? What do you mean?" She's like, "It's not Hira, like you're from Texas. Hira. It's like, it's Hira. There's like almost a D in there. Hira." And so, yeah, absolutely, 100%. And especially people with names that nobody gets right. It's a huge thing. Absolutely. And how big and diverse and wonderful is this paradise when we just see a glance of it? Like, we just see this amazing opportunity of like, oh my goodness, here's an entire other way of seeing the world and people that I hadn't even seen before. Because the Gambrels, is that what they're called? Gambrels? The Gambrels are the sky, the creation's bigger than I knew. And so we have all these things. So yeah. Well, we come to 9:52 on my clock, which brings us close. And so I wanted to say a few thanks to Camp Kyriakos for hosting all of this and giving this Bible study a chance to have a life. And it was kind of a neat little way to walk through Lent for me. I do want to deeply thank my associates, Reverend Craig Wentland and Reverend Ann Anderson. What a treat for me to have a program that I'm not completely in charge of every week, right? So you can sort of show up and just enjoy, right? And it's sort of in a feast of words and songs, as we've tried to sing on Zoom as best we can. And we've tried to, and we've pulled in some things. And so I do deeply appreciate that. Are there any words that we need to speak as we move towards closing? And I have a prayer and a song that we can finish with here as we go. Any other thoughts? Kendra, you must have some shameless promotion for what's coming next.
Well, first I want to thank you, Sean, as well as Craig and Anne, for leading us in these discussions these last 7 weeks. And Sean in particular for connecting Craig and Anne into this and kind of organizing the whole thing. I've really, really enjoyed this study series, and I've really appreciated this time together. So thank you to the three of you for adding this into what is surely already a busy schedule for you. It has been much appreciated. And thank you to everyone for showing up and participating in the discussion and adding the richness of your experience to our conversations as well. And then since Sean invited it, I will shamelessly promote our next study starts next week, and it is baptismal living. And it is being led by Pastor Tom Johnson, who is from California. And I will just throw into the chat here the link to register for that. If you have not done so yet and would like to, it would be wonderful to have you join us for that. And following that, we will have a study on awe and compassion with Reverend Duran Harris from Calgary. So that will be baptismal living will cover the remainder of April, and then awe and compassion will go through the month of May. And then we will take a hiatus from these weekly Bible studies for the summer season, where I'm just way too busy to be facilitating this as well. But we do plan to start them back up again in the fall, because it has been such a wonderful opportunity to connect and to be a part of community with one another. So do keep an eye open for that, and take a look at our summer offerings on our website as well. We are planning our primetime adult retreat. We're planning family camps. We're planning kids camps at this point. Oh, and Joe has just reminded me in the chat that next weekend we have our Renew Women's Retreat, which is a 3-day retreat online on Zoom. We'll be meeting for an hour or half an hour at a time for worship, prayer, and learning. We're focusing on different styles of prayer throughout the weekend. So if you are a lady, or you have a lady in your life who would enjoy that, please take a look at our website and consider signing up for that as well.
All right. Well, thank you for having us. Thank you for hosting us. Why don't I say a prayer, and then I'll break into the song again. And then from there, well, let's just wave and say our goodbyes now, just because this is that awkward moment you don't know when to say. If you need any more questions for Craig or Anne or myself or the camp, I mean, all the links are very easy to find, social media. So please do reach out and have the conversations you need to have. Other than that, let us pray. Loving God, as we stand at the beginning of these great 3 days, heading through this challenging real life and death drama of Holy Week, we pray that you open our eyes to just how expansive this paradise is, how big creation is. And in that, remind us of the love that you show to each of us by coming to dwell among us, coming to wash the feet of disciples, coming to die on a cross, coming to say, I love you, I forgive you, I dwell with you. It's more important that I be with you than any of the other things that are challenging and in the way. And so bless us this day, bless us this week as we go. Open our eyes and arms to all the possibility of what is to come. We pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen. What we need is here. 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 And now go in peace to love and serve the Lord. Thanks be to God. Amen.